Hello, people of the internet. I'm glad you have internet and were able to find me and watch this. So thanks for picking me out of all the other stuff that's out there. There's the Rainbow Gathering that's happening in not North, well, it is North, in North New Mexico, in Taos, of New Mexico, not in Taos, but in the far outskirts. Taos is probably the closest town to the national forest. I heard it was Pot Creek this year. Um, and of the gathering that's happening in New Mexico, it's the part of the national gathering this year. This year it's going to be a little split up. There's might be some in Pennsylvania. There might be some in Idaho because last year it was half canceled. I mean, some people went and did it anyway, and so anyway, there's this big gathering that happens, and I've gone my whole life. I didn't really particularly like it all the time. I mean, I just knew it was like the way the things were, and it made a lot of sense to me. But when it started to really get good was when I was more like late teenage years. I remember I was 17, I believe, when I went to the Arkansas gathering in 2007, and I was walking through the trails with no light, no flashlight. I had a drum, so I could kind of hear a little bit, but that doesn't really help too much. I'm not trained at that, but I am trained at feeling, and I just walked, and I could tell I was on the path because I was stepping in deep mud, and I was like, okay, well, this is still the path, because if I wander off the path, even to the edges of the path, it's like, oh, the mud's not as deep. This is just regular forest floor. This isn't the path. So just stay in the mud, and I'm on the path. And it was complete black, pitch black nothingness, and I was just walking through the mud, and so that and that's what that was a great experience in itself. And then I saw what I thought was a star, but it was too far down. And so I went towards it, and I was able to pick it up, and it was this tiny little piece of oh, what's it called? It's called foxfire, foxfluorescent. I think it's called foxfire. And it's this little moss that grows on wood, but I didn't know what it was when I picked it up. It was just like this odd little piece of glow that I was the only thing I saw for, like, it felt like hours of walking through this darkness before coming across stuff. I'm sure it wasn't, but I was walking really slow, so it maybe could have been approaching on an hour or so. And so I was I found this thing that first thing I could see, and it kind of lit up my hand, and then I walked with that for a ways until there was other people, until I finally ran into other people, and I was like, hey, look at this, what is this? And they showed it in my hand, and it just looked like a little, like, fragment of a stick. It didn't look like anything significant to shine a light on. And they're like, huh, well, that's nothing. I'm like, well, no, turn the light off though, and then you can see that it's glowing, and they're like, oh, okay. So then they went on. I didn't stick with the people with the light. I wasn't trying to find someone with a light to follow. I was just still going down the path. I eventually got to the opening. Well, because it was in a forest, so the opening was the creek where you could see some starlight, and the starlight was enough to be able to see the bridge that was made. Yeah, and the bridges that they make at the gathering are so cool. I mean, it just like sticks and mud and sticks and maybe some rocks and more mud and sticks. It's really great though. Like the way it all gets put together. And then it has to all get taken down too at the end. But that experience though of when I was walking through the darkness, that one really got me hooked somehow. I was like, oh, and then when I got what I could hear off in the distance was drumming, because there was a big drum circle that eventually, when I crossed the creek with the mud stick bridge over the creek, I was able to get to the drum circle, and then there was just a bunch of drums, and I drummed all night long until the morning. And at the morning, and when the sun rises on the 4th of July, there is a silence. Like, everybody is then quiet, everyone stops the drumming, which is for the first time in weeks, because there's been drumming going on for weeks in most gatherings. And then on the morning of the 4th, it's all quiet. Everyone's respecting the silence. It's a prayer, it's a meditation, it's a projection of peace to the world. It's a respecting of silence. It's whatever it is to you. It's going on for a lot of people. So, and that's a magical like transition if you're like a late night party animal and an early morning spiritualist or something. I don't know. So then from the late night party scene silences, and then it becomes quiet. Some people just sleep, some people are up and meditating, then people then gather around a peace bowl and and there's the big which is, that's another experience of thousands of people gathering and oming together. I say that every time I talk about Rainbow Gathering video though, so. And then the next morning, after I slept for a lot of the silence, and then there was the creek, and I built a giant rock circle stack that there was this little circle in the creek of rocks, and I just kept building it up and up and up the way I like stacking things until it was getting up here, getting big, and I was getting ready to like climb onto it or something. Like I was making a sturdy, tall rock stack that was 4 or 5 feet tall maybe, and I was getting ready to climb onto it, and it all like crumbled underneath me. But a bunch of people took pictures of that, but I've never seen a picture of it, so that's an interesting thing. Like, if anybody out there was at the Arkansas gathering in 2007, or they know anybody that was, and they took any pictures, did you take any pictures of me or my rock stack? That would be pretty cool. Another time someone did take pictures of me, and then a couple years later a friend was at the Rainbow Gathering and they saw the pictures that the photographer was giving out. Like, they're like, hey, these are pictures I took, and one of the pictures was of me. So because they asked to take my picture, because like there is that like, no, don't just take pictures of people at the gathering type vibe, because of the questionable behavior and the spiritual philosophies of people don't want their picture taken for various reasons, of it stealing its soul and stuff. But I've been over that, and how I have enough soul, because everybody, there's this infinite soul, so even if a camera does steal a piece or a fragment of your soul, it doesn't really matter, because a fragment of infinity is infinite. So, hi. Then after that gathering, I went to the gathering in, let's see, '08 would have been, uh, where was '08? Oh, Wyoming, of course, I can't forget that one. And then '09 was New Mexico the last time. And then 2010 was Pennsylvania. And then 2011 was Washington. Then 2012 was Tennessee. Then 2013 was Montana. And that was the run I did of like the ones that I really liked. And then I haven't been since. And but I still think it's a great, movement that happened a long time ago. It's still happening. It's still moving and changing, and maybe it's on the transition of making a new change to there being more spread out, it being something different. I mean, everything has to grow and change all the time, and I was, in the research of doing my last video about where it's going to be this year, because this year it's coming up in New Mexico this July, and in Pennsylvania, and in Idaho, because last year it got canceled from Idaho, but there was never really a cancellation, so a bunch of people went to Idaho anyway, so it's, now next year is definitely going to be Colorado, because Colorado is where it started in '72, and now it's going to be 2022, 50 years later, and it's going to be the 50th one. If you count that last year's didn't happen, then the 50th anniversary and the 50th gathering happening on the same time next year. But maybe that's a transition into something new, who knows. And like I was researching, like I would keep trying to say, that there was the Wikipedia page about the Rainbow Gathering, and it was fairly accurate in most of what it said. Um, it was a little negative focused, I would say. I mean, like, it not that the negative stuff it said was untrue, it's just that it seemed to focus a lot on the negative. Like, for example, there was a whole section on deaths that occurred at the gathering, and I mean, it's a gathering of thousands of people that's been happening for almost 50 years now, every year for like, so it's lots of people, maybe a million that have known about it by now, so it's bound to have some deaths, and there's like, sure, a handful of deaths for various reasons, and various negative things, but also there wasn't a section on births, and like I know for a fact that there's lots of kids that were born there, like every year, probably, at least, I would say, at least every year, kids, at least one kid was born, like on average a kid was born there every year. It would be my guess. Um, so there's not a section for that. I mean, maybe it's because that's harder to like quantify. It's harder to measure and stuff. I mean, because they're undocumented births, whereas the deaths are always going to be documented. But the births, I mean, you could have the way that you live, you could just have the kid, and then eventually when they take it to wherever they document that they had the kid, you might not say, hey, I was way out in the woods at this obscure, unofficial place that has no way to say where it was, so there's no like there's not going to be a lot of record of births at the Rainbow Gathering, but there should be a mention of it because it's definitely a lot more births at the gathering than there are deaths. So I just wanted to mention that for anybody researching the gathering and just doing whatever kind of research you can, that yes, there is some negative stuff, and I'll maybe do another video on it if I didn't feel like I talked about it enough just now. But that's the main part I wanted to say, is that they had a whole section on deaths and not a section on births, and there's a lot more life happening, a lot more positivity when you get into it than there is of the negative for so many aspects. And I feel like I'm gonna have to do another video because I want to wrap this one up and say thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on my next videos. I don't normally do videos like this. Normally I do videos where I'm stacking stuff or I'm playing didgeridoo that floats a piece of paper because that's a cool science experiment thing that people think built the pyramids somehow. And and there's lots of other three randoms talents that I don't know what the next one will be. Perhaps I'll do something else on a Slack line, like who knows, maybe I'll just play guitar on a Slack line again. That's a classic that I could do. Okay, enough hypothesizing about what my next video is going to be. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out. And it's dark, just like when I was walking through the woods. And you know what, this video probably shouldn't be dark.